Good morning, dear students. This is Suman Parshira, Digit English of KVOCF Sector 29B, Chandigarh. And today we are going to read the first chapter of your book, First Flight. And the name of chapter is A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. So let's start. A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. But before we proceed further, dear students, I would like to give a brief introduction about the author of the story, A Letter to God. A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. His full name was Gregorio Lopez y Fuentes. He was born on July 11, 1897, and died on December 10, 1966. G.L. Fuentes was a Mexican novelist, poet, and journalist. And this is the map of Mexico, dear students, where G.L. Fuentes was born. Mexico is the country in North America. Now, before we read the story in detail, here is a short summary of the story. This is the story of a farmer named Lencho, who writes a letter to God when his crops are ruined due to heavy hailstones. He asks for the help of 100 pesos from God. Does Lencho's letter reach to God? Does God help him by sending money? Let us find out the answers of these questions in the story. Now here goes the story. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. From this height one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. The house is the only one in the entire valley. Entire, the meaning of entire is whole. Crest means top of hill. As you can see in the picture here, in this picture there's a house which is situated on the top of a low hill. In the same way in the story too, there is a house which is sat on the top of a low hill. From this height one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. Here the meaning of ripe is grain or fruit which is ready for harvesting and eating. And corn, everybody knows, corn is a kind of a cereal. We call it makki in Hindi. Dotted with, dotted means covered with. So what it says, from this height one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers. From this height one could easily see the river flowing under the low hill and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers. Field of ripe corn which was covered with the flowers and that always promised a good harvest. And when the cornfield is covered with the flowers, it is a promise, it is a sign that it is going to be a good crop on that year. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour, or at least a shower. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. Here, the meaning of downpour is heavy rain, and the meaning of shower is light rain. And the meaning of intimately is closely. So what it says, the only thing the earth needed was a heavy rain or at least a light rain. Now why the earth needed the rain here? The earth needed rain so that the crops could ripe thoroughly. And throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields closely, had done nothing but he was desperately waiting for the rain, and he was looking towards the sky and towards northeast direction. He was looking towards northeast direction because the northeastern wind will bring the rain. He was hoping that the northeast wind will bring the rain. That is why he was looking towards sky continuously. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. The woman who was preparing supper replied, Yes, God willing. The older boys were working in the field, while the smaller ones were playing near the house, until the woman called to them all, Come for dinner. It was during the meal that, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. And now Lencho goes inside his house and he speaks to a woman, and he speaks very excitedly and says that now we are going to get a very good rain. Now it is going to be a very good rain. And the woman who was preparing supper, and the woman who was preparing the supper means evening meal or dinner. And the woman who was preparing a supper, and she also replied, and she said, Yes, if the God is willing. So, through this statement, dear students, what we come to know is how the farmers' lives are dependent on rain, weather, and God. The older boys were working in the field while the smaller ones were playing near the house. Until the woman called to them all, Come for dinner. So all the older boys, they were working in the field, and the smaller ones were playing outside of the house till the woman called them for dinner. And it was during the meal, and it was during their meal when they were taking the food, when they were taking the dinner, at that time, as just Lencho had predicted, Lencho had predicted means as he has forecasted, or as he has stated about the future, to tell something about future. Predicted means to tell about happenings in future. As Lencho told that woman that we are really going to get some water today. I mean, it is going to be a good rain today. So his prediction was right, because a big drops of rain began to fall, because a good rain started falling. In the northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. The air was fresh and sweet. The man went out for no other reason than to have the pleasure of feeling the rain on his body. And when he returned, he exclaimed, These aren't raindrops falling from the sky. They are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are fives. So here, Lencho quickly finished his dinner and went out and saw that the huge sized clouds are coming from northeast direction, and they were bringing rain along with them. The air was fresh and sweet. Lencho was so happy that he went out of his house only to have the pleasure of the feeling of rain on his body. And when he returned, he exclaimed, These aren't the raindrops falling from the sky. They are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are fives. So here, Lencho is comparing the raindrops with the coins. And he's saying that the big drops are 10 cent. Cent means, cent is the monetary unit. As in India, we are having paisa. In the same way, in few countries, they are having the monetary unit, which is called cent. Now, why Lencho is comparing the raindrops with coins here? Because these raindrops are valuable, and because of rain, they will have very good crop, and they will sell these crops, and they will earn money in return. That is why he is comparing the raindrops with the coins here. So in this way, we came to know that Lencho was very happy to see the rain approaching towards them. With a satisfied expression he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers, draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain very large hailstones began to fall. These truly did resemble new silver coins. The boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. Now here Lencho was fully satisfied to see his cornfields with flowers now draped in a curtain of rain, now covered in a curtain of rain. He was very happy to see the rain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. But suddenly what happened? A very strong wind started blowing, and along with the wind, the large hailstones began to fall. Hailstones means the frozen raindrops. Frozen raindrops. The hailstones began to fall, and these truly did resemble new silver coins, and those hailstones were looking like the silver coins. Why they were looking like the silver coins? Because they were white in color and they were round in shape. And the boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. And the boys were so excited to see these hailstones falling from the sky, and they ran out of their houses to collect the frozen pearls. They ran out of their houses to collect the white hailstone. "It's really getting bad now," exclaimed the man. "I hope it passes quickly." It did not pass quickly. For an hour the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white, as if covered with salt. Now, after seeing the hailstones falling continuously, Lencho got anxious, and he said, "It is really getting bad now," and he hoped that the hailstone would stop quickly. But it did not pass quickly, it did not stop. For an hour it was hailing on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. And after an hour, the cornfields of Lencho were covered with the hailstone. They all look white. They look as if they are covered with salt. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing. This year we will have no corn." Now, what was the after effect of the hailstone? Not even a single leaf was left on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The corn on the field of Lencho was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. The plants which were covered with the flowers, all the flowers were gone. And Lencho was very sad. He was feeling too sad, and even his soul was filled with sadness. And when the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts would have left more than this." A plague of locusts means the group of insects the group of insects which destroy the fields. So what he said to his son that a plague of locusts would have left more than this. He said that the swarm of locusts would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing. His whole crop has been destroyed. And this year we will have no corn. And he says that this year we will have no corn. We have nothing to eat because the hailstones have destroyed everything. That night was a sorrowful one. All our work for nothing. There is no one who can help us. We'll all go hungry this year. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. So that was a sorrowful night for Lencho and his family. Lencho said, all our work, all our hard work went for nothing. There is no one who can help us. We all are going to get hungry this year. But in the hearts of all those who were living in that solitary house, those who were living in that aloof house, in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope, and which was the hope of getting help from God. Don't be so upset, even though this seems like a total loss. Remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say. No one dies of hunger. Lencho, seeing the sad faces of his family members, he said to them, do not be so upset. Don't be so upset. Though it was a complete loss of ours, but remember that no one dies of hunger. That is what they say. No one dies of hunger. He wants to tell them that there is a God who is watching them and he will surely help them. So they are not going to die of hunger. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. Lencho was an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write. So throughout the night, Lencho was thinking only about his one hope, the hope of getting help from God. The God whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything. As Lencho knows that God's eyes can see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience, even something which is hidden inside the person's heart. Conscience means an inner sense of right and wrong. Inner sense of right and wrong. So Lencho knows that God is going to help him because God's eyes are watching everything. Even God's eyes could see something which is hidden deep inside somebody's heart. So Lencho was an ox of a man. Ox of a man means he's a hard-working man. Hard-working man. He's a hard-working man working like an animal in the fields. He works like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write, but still he is an educated man. The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. So the following Sunday at daybreak, daybreak means early morning, early morning. At daybreak, he began to write a letter. He started writing a letter which he himself would carry to town, and he placed that letter into the mailbox. It was nothing less than a letter to God. So actually, Lencho has written a letter to God, which he himself had posted into the mailbox. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes. Because the hailstorm. So Lencho writes the letter to God and he writes, God, if you don't help me, my family and I'll go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos. I need 100 pesos. Pesos means currency of several Latin American countries. Currency of Latin American countries. Pesos in order to sow my field. Sow means to plant seeds. So what he says that I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again. He asks for the help of 100 pesos from God to plant the seeds again in his fields and to live until the crop comes. So Lencho asks for the help of 100 pesos from God to plant the seeds in his fields again and to live until the crop comes. And dear students, now see this world map. In this world map, few countries are highlighted, and these are the countries who use pesos as their currencies. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still trouble went to town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. So Lencho writes to God on the envelope and puts the letter inside it. And he went to the town. And in the town, he went to the post office and he placed a stamp on the letter and he dropped that letter into the mailbox. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped the post office, went to his boss laughing heartily and showed him the letter to God. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address. So, when the postman took out the letters from the mailbox, he saw among many letters there was a letter carrying the address of God, address to God. And he cannot believe on that thing, and he was feeling so amused that he went to his boss directly, laughing heartily, and showed him the letter to God. And he said that never in his career as a postman had he ever known that address. And he made fun of that letter. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow, also broke out laughing, but almost immediately he turned serious and tapping the letter on his desk, commented, "What faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter. Starting up a correspondence with God?" So, the postmaster, a fat and amiable fellow, amiable means friendly. He was a friendly fellow. He also broke out laughing first. He also laughed first after seeing a letter which was addressed to God. But immediately he turned serious. And he tapped the letter on his desk. And he said, "What faith! I wish I had the faith of man who wrote this letter." And the postmaster was so very surprised that somebody had started having the correspondence with God. Somebody had started having correspondence means somebody had written the letter to God. So, in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea. Answer the letter. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than goodwill, ink, and paper. So the postmaster does not want to shake the writer's faith in God. And he came up with an idea. And the idea was to answer the letter. But when he opened the letter, it was quite evident. Evident means it was quite clear. It was quite clear that to answer this letter, he needs something more than goodwill, ink, and paper. Dear students, as we know, that Lencho had written the letter to God asking the help of 100 pesos from God. And when Postmaster had opened this letter of Lencho, he came to know that Lencho was in the need of money. So let's see what the Postmaster does. But he stuck to his resolution. He asked for money from his employees. He himself gave part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. But the postmaster was stuck to his resolution. Resolution means his decision. What was his decision? His decision was to provide help to Lencho. And for that, he asked for the money from his employees and he himself gave the part of his own salary, and even his several friends were feeling so obliged, they were feeling so grateful to give something for an act of charity. Charity means the act of helping the needy, an act of helping the needy. It was impossible for him to gather the 100 pesos, so he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. He put the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho, and with it a letter containing only a single word as a signature, God. So finally the postmaster was able to collect some money, though he was not able to collect the whole 100 pesos. So he sends the farmer only a little more than half. And as we all know, Lencho had asked for the 100 pesos from God, and the postmaster was able to collect little more than half. It means he was able to collect half of 100 is 50, 50 plus. So he puts the money in an envelope and he writes the address of Lencho on the envelope, and he puts a letter inside that envelope and he writes nothing on that letter but only a signature of God. The following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him. It was the postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. So the following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him or not. Actually, Lencho was so very sure that God would have surely sent him the answer of his letter. That is why he came a bit earlier on that day to the post office to collect his letter. And it was the postman himself who handed the letter to him. While the postmaster, experiencing the contentment, the postmaster was experiencing the contentment. Contentment means inner joy. Postmaster was feeling inner joy, inner joy or satisfaction of a man who had performed a good deed, as postmaster had helped Lencho by collecting some money and by sending that amount of money to Lencho in that envelope. That is why postmaster was feeling contented, he was feeling joyful, as he had done a good deed by helping a needy person. So the postmaster was looking everything from his office because he was having this hope that Lencho will be feeling happy after seeing the money inside the envelope. So postmaster was looking everything from his office. Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money. Such was his confidence. But he became angry when he counted the money. God could not have made a mistake, nor could he have denied Lencho what he had requested. When Lencho opened the envelope, he was not surprised to see the money inside it, because his confidence and his faith towards God was so deep that he knew that God is going to send him the money for sure. But he became angry when he counted the money. But when he counted the money and he saw that the money was less than 100 pesos, he became very angry. And he was thinking, God could not have made the mistake, and nor could he have denied Lencho what he had requested, and he had requested for 100 pesos only. Then why the God has sent less than 100? And he got very angry on that. Immediately, Lencho went to the window to ask for paper and ink. On the public writing table, he started to write, with much wrinkling of his brow, caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. So immediately Lencho went up to the window of post office and he asked for a paper and ink. On the public writing table, he started writing a letter to God. And while writing the letter, his brows were wrinkling, as he was putting effort to express his ideas. When he finished, he went to the window to buy a stamp, which he licked and then affixed to the envelope with a blow of his fist. And when he finished writing the letter, he went to the window of post office and he bought the stamp from there, and he licked the stamp and he affixed the stamp on the envelope with a blow of his fist. The moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. It said, "God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send me the rest, since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks." Lencho. So the moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster himself went to collect and open the envelope. The letter was addressed to God. It said that only 70 pesos had reached him instead of 100. He requested God to send him the remaining amount, but not through the mail. He suspected the postal employees of taking out 30 pesos. And his last words were that they were a bunch of crooks. They were the gang of cheats. Crooks means cheats. So dear students, here you see, Lencho was such a simpleton that he thought that the post office employees had taken away 30 pesos. And this situation is so ironical that these very people who had donated money to help Lencho were called a gang of cheats by Lencho himself. So that's all for the story, dear students. I hope you have enjoyed the story. Now let's discuss the theme of A Letter to God. The story A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes highlights immense power in man's innocent faith in God. It teaches us that if man has childlike faith in God, he can accomplish anything considered impossible. If with this faith man asks God for help, God responds, though through his own peculiar channels, and fulfills man's any urgent, legitimate desire. So, dear students, the moral of the story is extreme faith in the Almighty can give you a ray of hope even in the darkest times. Now, dear children, in upcoming slides, we'll discuss about extract-based questions of 1 mark. Let's read the extract. The moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. It said, "God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send me the rest, since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks." And the questions are, what does Lencho mean by the rest? And the answer is, by the rest, Lencho meant those 30 pesos which were yet to be received. Second question, what was in Lencho's mind when he was writing the letter? And the answer is, Lencho thought that only God could help him in that hour of need. And the third question is, find out a word from the passage which is the opposite of honest. And the opposite of honest is crooks. Who are denoted a bunch of crooks? The post office employees. Second extract. So, in order to not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea. Answer the letter. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it he needed something more than goodwill, ink, and paper. But he stuck to his resolution. He asked for money from his employees. And the questions are, number 1, Who decided to answer the letter? And as we all know, the postmaster decided to answer the letter. Second question, how did the postmaster help the writer of the letter? And the answer is, the postmaster asked the other post office employees to contribute from their salary, and he too contributed to help the writer of the letter. Third question, which word in the extract means the same as firm decision? And the answer is, resolution means the same as firm decision. Fourth question, who is he in the passage? The postmaster is he in the passage. Now the next extract is, with a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. And the questions are, who was satisfied? So who was satisfied? Lencho was satisfied. Why was he satisfied? Second question. He was satisfied to see the rain falling. And the third question is, which word in the extract means the same as covered? So draped word in the extract means the same as covered. Draped word in the extract means the same as covered. Why was Lencho satisfied? Lencho was satisfied on seeing the field of ripe corn with flowers. Now, in the further slides, dear children, we will discuss about the 2 marks questions. So, dear students, let's discuss the important questions and answers now. The first question is, what did Lencho hope for? And the answer is, Lencho hoped for rains, as then only he could get a better yield and thus feed his family. So, Lencho was hoping for a good rain because then only he could get a better crops and he would be able to feed his family. Second question, why did Lencho say the raindrops were like new coins? Lencho's crops were ready for harvest, as raindrops would have helped in getting a better harvest, resulting in more prosperity, so Lencho compared them with the new coins. As we all know, Lencho's crops in the field were ready for harvest, and as the raindrops would have helped in getting a better harvest, and the raindrops would help his crops to get better ripe, and because of which, what will happen? And when the better ripe corns will be sold in the market, he would be able to earn more money and he will become more prosperous. He will be able to earn more money. That is why Lencho compares the raindrops with the new coins. Third question, how did the rain change and what happened to Lencho's fields? The rain was powering down, but suddenly a strong wind began to blow. What happened? The rain was powering down, the rain was falling down, but suddenly what happened? A strong wind began to blow, followed by a devastating hailstorm. Suddenly the rain was changed into a hailstorm. And then all the crops in Lencho's fields were destroyed. And because of the hailstorm, all the crops in Lencho's fields were destroyed. Question number 4. What were Lencho's feelings when the hail stopped? And the answer is, after the hail stopped, Lencho's heart was filled with sadness. He was completely shattered. As we know that after hail, what happened? His whole crop was destroyed in the field. That is why he was completely shattered. He was fully saddened. And he could see a bleak future of him and his family. And he could see a bleak future means he could see a miserable future of for him and his family, and he was worried about the lack of food for the coming year. Now let's discuss few more important questions. Who or what did Lencho have faith in? And what did he do? Lencho had faith in God. He firmly believed that God can see everything and even knows that his people have in their hearts. He strongly felt that God will definitely help him out of this situation. He wrote a letter to God saying that he needed some money to sow his fields again. So Lencho had faith on God because he knew that God is definitely going to help him. That is why he wrote a letter to God asking for the money to sow his fields again. Next question. Who read the letter? The postmaster read the letter. Third question. What did the postmaster do then? The postmaster was deeply moved by Lencho's faith in God and he did not want to disillusion this faith. So he decided to collect the money and also asked his colleagues to contribute so that he can send it to Lencho. So what did Postmaster do? Postmaster was deeply moved. He was deeply moved by Lencho's faith on God, and he did not want to disillusion his faith. He does not want to shake his faith on God. That is why what he did, he decided to collect money, and he also asked his colleagues to contribute some money so that it could be sent to Lencho. Was Lencho surprised to find a letter for him with money in it? No, Lencho was not at all surprised to see the letter from God with money inside it. His confidence and faith in God was such that he had expected that God would definitely send money and help him out of this situation. So, was Lencho surprised to find a letter for him with money in it? No, Lencho was not at all surprised. Why? Because he was having a complete faith or confidence on God, right? Because he thought that God would definitely send him money and help him out of this situation. Next question. What made him angry? When he finished counting money, he found only 70 pesos in it. When Lencho counted the money, he found that only 70 pesos were there, but he had demanded for 100 pesos. And he was confident that God could neither make a mistake and not deny him what he had requested. So he was pretty sure that the post office employees must have taken the remaining 30 pesos from the envelope. That is why he was angry. Now let's discuss the questions of thinking about the text. Why does the postmaster send money to Lencho and why does he sign the letter God? Postmaster was moved by Lencho's strong faith in the God. So he decided to send money to Lencho. So Postmaster was fully moved. He was touched by Lencho's strong faith in God. That is why he decided to send money to Lencho. Moreover, the Postmaster did not want to disillusion him or shake his trust in God. And moreover, Postmaster did not want to shake the trust of Lencho on God. So he signed the letter as God. And it was a good ploy to convey a message that God had himself written the letter. And by signing the letter with the name of God, it was a plan, it was a ploy, it was a plan of Postmaster to convey a message to Lencho that God himself had written the letter to Lencho. Second question, did Lencho try to find out who had sent the money to him? Why or why not? No, Lencho did not try to find out who had sent the money because he trusted God. Lencho had never tried to find out who had sent him the money because he trusted God. His faith in God was so strong that he believed that only God could have sent him the money. So his faith on God was so strong that he believed that only God could have sent the money to him. That is why Lencho did not try to find out who had sent the money to him. Now the next question is, who does Lencho think has taken the rest of the money? What is the irony in the situation? Remember that the irony of a situation is an unexpected aspect of it. An ironic situation is strange or amusing because it is the opposite of what is expected. Lencho had all his doubts on people working in the post office. The irony of the situation is that Lencho blames those who had tried to help him out. So, what happened? Who does Lencho think has taken the rest of his money? Lencho had thought that, or he had doubts on the people working in the post office. He thinks that the people who are working in the post office had stolen his rest of money. And what is the irony of the situation? And the irony of the situation is that Lencho blames those who had tried to help him out. He was blaming those people who had actually tried to help him out. So, this is the irony of the situation. And in real life also, we come across such situation when a time you would have tried helping someone and he may get a wrong message. In the same way, Lencho thinks that the post office people have taken the money. But the fact is that they only tried to help him by sending money. But on the other hand, Lencho thinks they have stolen his money and he even calls them crooks. He even calls them cheats. Thus, there is an element of irony in this situation. Now, let's discuss some extra important questions. And the first question is, give a brief description of the view from Lencho's house. And the answer is, Lencho's house was situated on the crest of a low hill and it was the only one in the valley. One could easily see the river and the field of ripe corn from here. So Lencho's house was situated on the crest, on the top of a low hill, and it was the only one house in the valley. And one could easily see the river flowing under the low hill and the field of ripe corn from there. Question number 2. How much money did Lencho need and how much did he get? And the answer is, Lencho got 70 pesos and he was angry at the difference as he needed 100 pesos to sow the crops again and to support his family till the next harvest. So how much money did Lencho need? Lencho needed 100 pesos. And how much did he get? He got only 70 pesos. For that reason, he was very angry. And question number 3 is, why did Lencho not want the money to be sent through mail? And the answer is, Lencho wrote in his second letter that he received only 70 pesos, but he needed 100 pesos. He requested God not to send rest of the money by post, since the post office employees were a bunch of crooks and would steal the money. So, Lencho did not want the money to be sent through mail because he thinks that post office employees were the crooks, they were the cheats who stole his 30 pesos which were sent to him by God. That is why he told God to send the rest of money, 30 pesos, to him but not by mail. Now, in the further slides, we'll discuss about the long answer type questions, the questions of 8 marks. Now, let's discuss some long answer type questions. Question number 1. Humanity still exists. This is what we get to know after reading a letter to God, in which firm faith in God of a poor farmer and helpfulness of the post office employees are aptly depicted. Thought. Write a paragraph on the value in it in about 80 to 100 words. And the answer is existence of humanity. After reading a letter to God, our faith in humanity stirs for strong. So after reading this story, a letter to God, our faith, our belief in humanity, our faith in humanity stirs for strong. Our faith in humanity, it stays or it becomes more strong. We learn from the story that there still are people who help others without any self-interest. So through the story, we come to know that there are few people are there in the society who are ready to help the others without any self-interest. For example, the postmaster and the post office employees lay an example for every one of us to be kind. Though they all laughed at his letter, but they were really moved by the grip of faith Lencho had in God. Though initially all the employees of post office they laughed at Lencho's letter, the letter which is written to God by Lencho, but later on all of them were totally moved by the grip of faith Lencho had shown in God. The way they all decided to help the stranger in this hard time, in his hard times, restores our faith in the existence of humanity. So, the way all of the post office employees, they decided to help the stranger in his hard times, it restores our faith. It makes our faith more strong in the existence of humanity and motivates us to be noble and kind person. And it also motivates us to be noble and kind person. Now the next question is, describe Lencho's qualities in light of his faith in God. Do you have faith in God like Lencho? Was Lencho's reaction towards post office employees right? Let's discuss the answer. Lencho was a poor farmer who totally dependent on the harvest to survive and fulfill basic needs of his family. So Lencho was a poor farmer who was totally dependent on his crops for the survival and to fulfill his basic needs. Once his crops were destroyed due to heavy rainfall and hailstones, and was afraid to think how his family would survive. And once his crops were destroyed due to heavy rainfall or hailstones, now he was afraid to think how his family would survive. He believed that God would help him in this plight. So he believed that God would help him in this difficult time. He had firm faith in God and he believed that God would not let him be hungry. Nowadays, faith in God like Lencho is almost impossible and unseen. People are very much aware that nobody is willing to help others without any self-interest. Lencho's reaction towards post office employees was not right or justified, but it was just because of his innocence, as he could not believe that God had done such a mistake. It were only the post office employees who had stolen money, according to him. So, dear students, in the end, there's an assignment for you. It's a hot question. Lencho had faith in God but lacked faith in humanity. Elaborate with reference to a letter to God. And you have to write your answer within 100 to 150 words. That's all for today's class. Thank you.